development. And tonight we've got a talk focused on the subject of healing. To get us kicked off this evening, I'm going to ask Cindy to take us through a little meditation and to do a short exercise where you'll have the opportunity to get a sense and to feel healing energy. It's surprisingly simple and surprisingly effective, and I think you guys will enjoy that. Cindy, over to you.
Thanks, Mark. So, good evening, everybody. I'm always love to be here. I love to share my experience and my stories. But as Mark said, we're going to start off really just doing a meditation and coming into our bodies, and then we're going to send out some healing. And as we get to a certain point, I'm going to ask you to open your eyes. So I invite you to listen to my voice, follow the meditation or the visualization. If some of you are a little bit adverse to the word meditation or I can't, it's just a visualization. And we're going to do an exercise at the end to get an understanding of healing. So if your legs are crossed, please can I ask you to uncross your legs, uncross your arms. If you're sitting in a chair, put both your feet flat on the ground. If you're in bed, just visualize that your feet are actually on the ground with intention. I invite you to close your eyes. And let us just follow the breath. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. Just feeling yourself getting heavier and heavier on the chair. Feel your feet sinking down into Mother Earth, sinking down into the rich soil of Mother Earth. Just visualize it being really full of beautiful nutrients and being a rich color. And as they sink down into Mother Earth, feel roots growing from the soles of your feet, really thick, healthy roots going down, 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 down all the layers of the earth, deep, deep down, and into the center of the earth, into the center of the unconditional love of Gaia, the earth energy. And we connect to that beautiful earth energy as we bring it up, 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 up through all the layers. And as our root is doing that, it's collecting all the goodness, all the unconditional love that we need as it brings that beautiful energy up into the feet, up into the thighs, up into the base. And from the base, we drop a third root, the power of three strong roots going down. So visualize that third root going down, 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 deep down and connecting with that earth energy. And we just feel the safety of Mother Earth. Feel the safety of that earth energy coming up, 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 up into our base. And we feel that love and we feel the healing and security that Mother Earth gives us as the earth energy goes up and down the spine. Feel yourself being held and set the intention. I am grounded. I have a right to be here. Now center your thoughts or your energy in the center of your heart or in the center of your chest, which is your heart chakra. And from there, we're going to go up and we're going to connect to Source, the divine God, that vibration higher than ourselves. It doesn't really matter how you see that, but I invite you to go from the heart up through the roof of your head, up through the roof of the house, up into your night sky, up, up, up to the highest point of light, to Source, to that higher vibration. And let us just bring that beautiful energy down into our hearts. And in our hearts, we feel love, compassion, joy, and just that warmth. Just feel that warmth of unconditional love as we affirm, I am attuned. And as we sit in this call, we just ask for protection, protection for our energy, protection for the call. And again, we affirm, I am protected. And as we feel that, we feel this bubble of unconditional love just bubbling in our heart. We're going to go to source once more, and we're going to go to that higher vibration with the intention of connecting with healing energy. So let us now bring up the healing energy from our roots up into our hearts, up into our hearts. And there we are anchored. And we're anchored in our hearts and being held by Mother Earth as we go up to the highest source of healing energy. And we connect to healing energy, whatever that energy is for you, the healing, the compassion, the unconditional love. And again, we bring that beautiful healing energy down into our hearts. And from our hearts, I want you to think of sending healing to those closest to us. So just send out healing energy to your loved ones, your partners, your family. And just give some thought to them. I'd like you now to send out healing to all those in your house, the pets, the plants. Send that healing out to your neighborhood. Send that healing out to your city, to your country, to your continent. I'd like you to focus to one of the places in the world that requires healing. Not just the victims, but let us send healing to both the victims and the perpetrators. Let us send healing to all those concerned in areas of war and conflict. And let us just collectively focus our energy and the healing to those places. Once more, I want you to check your grounding and bring up that earth energy. And once more, I want you to go to the highest point of light of source. Up, and connect with that beautiful, fast energy, that energy and that vibration that is higher than your own density. And bring that down into your heart. And I'd like you now to open your eyes. And I'd like you to get a feeling of what it is for that energy to flow down your hand, down your arms and into your hands. And I would like you to make a ball of healing energy. So just following my energy, just feeling that magnet of healing energy between your hands. Just feel it. You can play a little bit with it and stretch it. You can bring that healing energy a little closer. Just getting, it might tingle a little bit. It might be a little bit cool. It might be a little bit hot. But really just get a sense of that healing energy. Just feel the tingling. And now just face that energy to yourself and just give your physical body some healing. Feel it as it goes over. Maybe you've got a sore knee or some part of your body, maybe a shoulder, and just focus that energy on a spot that needs some healing. It might tingle, but just get a sense of this beautiful energy. Slowly feel that energy leaving your hands. Feel your feet on the ground. Just put your hands back. They might be tingling a little bit. They might be a little bit hot. But that is healing energy. It is the most extraordinary form of energy. If we think about what is going on with energy in the world right now, we have access to energy that is higher than ourselves, that is able to shift blocks and dis-ease within our energy field.
Yeah, thanks, Cindy. That's really, quite profound how easy it is for us to tap into this healing energy. And I was just thinking as you're talking how natural it is, and how many thousands of years people have just been doing this naturally. I mean, if a child hurts themselves, if you've got children, or if you remember being a child, if you hurt yourself, what does your mother do? Oh, yeah, let me put my hand on your head, or put a hand on the stomach or something. It's sort of like a natural thing that we're programmed to do. But if you enjoyed that exercise, I'd love to hear your comments. Post something into the chat box. I want to see, what did that energy feel like for you? Did you feel that energy flowing? Did you feel that ball of energy in your hands? Yeah, put something in the chat box and share it with the rest of us. And I'm very interested, Fernanda, in how you started healing and what got you onto this path.
I started healing very young, when I was very little. I was 5 years old when I used to go to my grandmother's house and use the tip of my fingers to heal her sister. Every Sunday she would come. I was born in Brazil, a Catholic country. She would go to the church and come to visit my grandmother. And I used to and she had a few scars in her hand. And I used to put the tip of my finger for healing. For a long time, I resisted to become a healer. When I was in Brazil, every time I met someone spiritual, they said to me, "Oh, you are a healer." And I don't think so. And later on, I came to UK. I came here in 1997. And I met someone, and she looked at me and she said exactly the same. And I said, "How come someone so far away said exactly the same?" So then she told me, "You need to start healing." So that's when I started doing Reiki. In 98, I signed up for Reiki, and that's when my journey started.
Okay.
So
did you feel any resistance to actually doing that Reiki course? I mean, you had so many people telling you along the way that you were a healer. What sort of pushed you over the edge to actually get started?
That's very interesting, Mark, because I was seeing a therapist at that time. And she said to me, "You need to work with it." And I said, "Okay, I will do it." And the next session I had with her, she said, "So have you signed up?" "No." Then she said, "Well, I will not see you until you do your Reiki course."
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
She said to me, in the spiritual law, if, by the end of my term here, when someone says, "You saw Fernanda, and how did you guide her?" And then I will have to say, "Well, I tried, but I didn't try hard enough." And that was the time where I said, okay, I signed up. I went there and I did the Reiki 1. And after a year, I did the Reiki 2. That's when you start working professionally with Reiki. And a few years later, I took a while, and then I did the Reiki 3. Then I became a Reiki master teacher. And now I attune. I have students who learn Reiki with me.
Okay. Thanks, Fernanda.
Very
We'll come back to Reiki later, because I'm very curious about that process. But Dennis, maybe you can share with us how you came to be a healer.
Sure, Mark. So my thinking is I was never meant to be a healer. And it was a really, really long, slow process. So basically, I was very deeply into spirituality from sort of early age. And I was more into sort of, trying to reach enlightenment and self-processes and what have you. So I guess the first healing I did was self-healing without even knowing that that's what I was doing all the time. And then in the late 1980s, I was doing some spiritual practices, and I joined a group where we were doing polarity therapy. So it was just a group thing where people worked on each other, and we did like a group session on each other. And polarity therapy, it's a energy healing modality, and you kind of hold points on the body with the intention of removing blockages or bringing a balance to the body's different systems. So that's basically what it is, but it's an energy healing process. So that was my first experience, but not really intending to, do anything with it. And then I had a spiritual teacher, Dr. Machtel Shackleton, and we did all sorts of different visualizations and meditations and different processes. And I actually ended up doing my Reiki training through her. At the same time, I was part of the White Eagle Mystery School. And there's also meditations, visualizations, and what have you, but they also do energy healing. So there again, I learned to be an energy healer as an extension of the spirituality. And then from there, moved on to mindfulness and EFT, and eventually did my 2-year course with the school.
Okay. So Dennis, you worked as a photographer for many years, even whilst you were studying energy healing. How long did it take you to sort of transition to doing more energy healing professionally?
Good question, because they kind of ran in tandem. The sort of my visits to the healing, but I guess about I shut down my photography business in 2016, went to the UK for a couple of months in mind to emigrate. That didn't work out. Came back to South Africa, and I had no idea what to do with my life. So I kind of sort of doing some research into more spirituality, and that's when I tapped into EFT. Pardon the pun. And then from there, I thought, okay, this works. It's really working. So I found 2 teachers and did 2 courses. So that was kind of the start, 2017, 2018.
Okay. So I'm going to come back to the EFT and some of the things that you've studied. But I guess, your path is quite similar to mine. I studying spiritual subjects and doing a lot of reading, and also like thinking, all there is to this is the path to enlightenment. I had no intention of ever working as an energy healer. I guess for many reasons, I didn't think it was for me. But the first time I actually did any energy healing, I was volunteering at a spiritual church. And before the services, we would offer energy healing to the people who were coming to the services. And it was all quite exciting because, doing energy healing and wondering, okay, is this going to make a difference to the person's life? Is anything going to change? And it was really I found it really quite intriguing and quite exciting, and enough to pique my interest to try and learn more. And I guess that's where I met Cindy, was at the spiritual church. And you came already with some healing experience, and you managed to bring in some more procedures and sort of taught me quite a bit. But how did you land up studying healing? What got you to that point?
By mistake. So it was really quite a for me. I was more interested in psychic development and mediumship, and I was studying at the College of Psychic Studies, and I'm sure some of you had heard my story as to why I was there, but I was keeping myself at the pub at the time, and I was fascinated by psychic development. Again, had no intention. It was really an interest that, oh my goodness, you can read people's energy, you can talk to people who have passed over. And I was fascinated. I spent a lot of time in the spiritualist churches, and I gave up smoking. And as a result, there was a massive, and I smoked like 30 to 40 Camels a day at the time when I gave up. And my chest was really bad. And I had, somebody said, you need to get some healing. And I had some healing, and that ignited the healing energy within me. And it was almost like I had this burning energy coming out of my hands. And I went to the psychic development teacher and I said, what's going on here? And she said, you need to go for an interview next door because they're recruiting for the 2-year healing course and you need to join that. And I went for an interview and I got in. And I learned all these things. And really, for me, what happened is I started healing myself with the process. And I realized that that was the transformational journey. And it was only like in module 4 that I realized, oh my goodness, I can do this. I need to start taking it seriously. This is an amazing process because it's changing my life. And if somebody at that time when I joined it said one day you'd be facilitating a healing course or whatever, I would have just fallen off my chair laughing, because it was just meant to be a form of learning and interest and fascination with spirituality. And I was fascinated by it. I could do this with my hands and energy came out and I could read people's energy. So I was really curious. At the time, I wasn't spiritual. I think I naturally was a spiritual person, but it was just learning my transformation.
Okay. Thanks, Cindy. Yeah, it certainly, made a difference. I mean, I remember the one time Cindy said to me at the spiritual center that my aura was full of holes. And I was like, okay, I'd been feeling a bit under the weather. And I thought like I was just coming down with a cold. It's like, okay, something's going on here. And I went home and I sat with that and I thought, okay, well, I've got to fix this now. And I've got to fix it tonight. I'm not going to wait and get an appointment in a week's time. And I sat there and I just started breathing light into my aura to try and sort it out. And I felt better the next day. Yeah. So, I get a lot of people who ask me what I do, and I say, okay, I'm an energy healer. And they're like, okay, well, what is that? Is that like Reiki? And, I get that a lot. I don't know if you guys get that, but you guys do Reiki. So maybe you just know what the answer is. But Fernanda, maybe you can explain to us and to the audience, what is Reiki? How does it work? Like, how do you study Reiki? And how does that actually compare to energy healing as what we learn at the School of Intuition and Healing?
So Reiki is universal life force energy, and it's very similar actually to energy healing. It is a Japanese type of energy healing. For you to do Reiki, you do an attunement, you find a Reiki master teacher, and then you start with the level 1. This level is mostly for self-healing, for Reiki. You're not working professionally. You need to do the level 2 for that. The difference is that you use symbols. When you are tuning to the Reiki, you use symbols to help you, to aid you with the healing. And you will spend the first time in the same way we have what, the Chinese call the Qi energy, is the life force energy. So Reiki is about clearing the blockages, establishing that natural flow of energy. If there is any negativity or if there is any blockage in the energetic system. And you will take care of your energy in level 1. The level 2, if you want to move further, then you will do the second level, where you will learn new symbols will be given to you to help you with the Reiki. And the difference for me is the vibration. It's very similar, really, Mark, but it's the vibration. I know when I'm tuning into Reiki, and I know when I'm tuning into energy healing. When I started the energy healing, I've noticed that whenever I went to give healing, the energy healing would come first, even though I started working with Reiki as I trained in Reiki first. But it's mainly the vibration. And also I found that with Reiki was more about, more physical, about looking into the body. We use a lot in Reiki the Biosen, that is the scanning. You use your hand to scan the body and to see if there is any blockage, where you feel your hand has different sensations, and you use that to guide yourself. Use your hands to scan the client, check the client's energy. And then you stay there until your hands, feel different, where you can feel normally in that place, there is a blockage. So you will feel that the frequency in the body has changed. So for me, it's as I said, it's very similar. Yeah. How does it feel for you, Dennis?
Yeah, I agree very much. I think if I think of differences, then with our energy healing, normally you don't turn the person over onto their stomach. So we do the complete healing with intention to do, the front and the back at the same time. Where I think mostly in Reiki, you do the front and then you also turn the person over to do the back. Well, that's my experience. What was the other thing? Oh, yes. At the school, we learn a lot of different healing techniques, in the sense, if you think of the white light disc or the white light vortex, things like that. So there are sort of some differences. And also in Reiki, you can draw out sort of like the darker energy or energy that's not serving the person. You tend to sort of draw it out. I think more on the course, we would sort of sweep the subtle bodies. Perhaps that's a difference as well. But otherwise, I agree with everything you said, 100%.
And I think with the healing course, from what I understand, I don't know much about Reiki, but we use that basic model, but then we take it further in terms of the interactive healing, the ancestral healing, the
soul retrieval,
you know what I'm saying? So I think it's almost like there's this model of doing things that one could use with, you could almost integrate them once you had learned both modalities. I mean, I know we facilitate them very differently and separately. But I think for me, it's around with the energy healing, is that we actually then go in and possibly work with the story, or work with the energy, or work with the ancestors for ancestral healing, and bring that through in a format. I'm not sure how, I mean, because you both know both of the modalities.
Mm.
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. What I found, Cindy, is that I had a lot more tools with the energy healing when I did the course. And especially when I did the Reiki, I still didn't learn how to take care of my energy.
Mm-hmm.
I only managed that when I did the energy healing course. I felt that I knew a lot, but in terms of my energy, and as you said, I felt a lot more equipped, and I had a lot more tools in working with clients when they came and said specifically, oh, this is to do with my inner child.
Mm.
Yes, so then I felt I had a lot more, was, of course, and it's an intention, it's an energy, and Reiki is a very clever energy and loving energy, and you set the intention for the highest good of the client. But as a therapist or someone who is there helping out, working, it helps if you are in a process or doing continuously a treatment with someone who comes regularly back, and they're working on an inner child, they might be having, counseling out of, working on the cognitive aspects and, and going through that, and energetically you can feel that and help them to accompany them on that aspect that they are working with. So it was a lot more in depth for me, I felt.
Okay.
One other thing while we're just on this, and I know we're going to dive deeper into some other modalities, I think the thing around the 2-year healing course for me when I did that was the code of conduct and the structure of which to facilitate that. And I think that was quite helpful in terms of a code that worked with the law, especially overseas, and then with best practice in other countries where we use that structure. And I think that was really helpful, and for myself when I did the healing course.
Yeah, it's a powerful document to guide one through tricky situations or difficult scenarios where you're not quite sure on what's appropriate and what you can do. And that comes up quite often, like working with children or working with people who are absent and so on. I'm interested, Dennis, in your emotional freedom technique. Can you perhaps explain that and how it works and how you study that?
Yeah, certainly, Mark. Before I do that, can I just sort of flesh out a little bit what Fernanda said, just very briefly, in the sense that exactly what she said about sort of learning more. And I saw it in my fellow students when I did the course. I think there were 3 of them that were actually practicing Reiki healers already. And, I saw their growth and everything way beyond their current knowledge, because you learn things like boundaries that are really, really so important. And the gap process, what we did initially with Cindy, the grounding, attuning, and protection, that's kind of life-changing. It certainly was for me, and I've heard that from other students as well. So that's just what I wanted to add there. With the EFT, the emotional freedom technique, also known as tapping, it's very popular in the United States and in England. And it's basically a combination, so it's an energy healing modality. It's a combination of using Chinese acupuncture or Chinese acupressure points and psychological processing. So you go through a process where you tap on various what we call meridian points. So you have the meridian energetic points running through your body, and where several of them meet on the surface, you have specific points that you can tap on. So like, for instance, here under the eye, you have your stomach meridian. So you can work with that in a particular way. And another thing in EFT is we work with the flight, fight, and freeze response. So if you think in sort of older times, you might have had to flee from a wild animal or an enemy. And when you go into that response, your body emits cortisol and it emits adrenaline, so that all the blood rushes to your muscles and everything, so that you can get away fast. And there's various different processes. That's fine if that happens, once in the blue moon, and then you go through you go through that chemical change. But in modern day, it's happening on a semi-daily basis or a weekly basis, where people go into kind of like a lower form of fight, flight, and freeze, but it's over a long term. So with all those chemicals like cortisol and adrenaline being retained in your system, you start getting physical ailments and different symptoms. So EFT works to clear the energy of that, or to clear away the symptoms. There's a lovely tapping model called the tapping tree. So if you think of a tree, the roots will be your beliefs, the trunk will be your life experiences or your trauma, the branches are your emotions or your feelings, and the leaves are your symptoms. So if we look at that model, we can say, okay, what beliefs do you want to clear? What symptoms do you need to change? And you work on tapping those away.
Okay, that sounds fascinating. And it's certainly like popular because people are actively involved in their healing processes. And it's something that's quite tangible and feels quite real because you're like, you know, you can feel it. And
it's a doing thing.
It's a doing thing, yeah.
Yes.
As opposed to just sort of like,
it's extremely grounding because you tap yourself back into your physical body. So like with panic attacks, I don't know, I must have seen it about half a dozen times. If you work with a panic attack, you can actually collapse all of that energy in 7 minutes. You know, so we've gone through the process where the person afterwards has been laughing, okay, semi-hysterically, but they've been laughing and like they were just, what's happened? You know, what happened there? How did that change? So things like that. Yeah.
Fernanda, maybe you can tell us a little bit about family constellations. I remember when I lived in London many years ago, I had a girlfriend who was a psychologist who was fascinated about the subject of family constellations and tried to explain it to me, but I could never understand it. Perhaps I wasn't ready. And then a few years ago, I had the opportunity to represent in a family constellation, and I finally understood like how profound family constellations are, but I still can't explain it to people. Perhaps you can just like explain it to us.
So family constellation is about looking at the hidden dynamics in families. Yes. When we look at someone, when I work with a client, I have the client in front of me, but I also work with the client's family and the client's history. And most of the time, we are bringing into our lives what is from our ancestors. So with family constellation, we look into what is there that we haven't seen. Because most people, they will come to you and say, this is what is happening. This is, how I see it. This is the situation. But what is behind there? What happened before that? And that may be the reason why that situation is happening in that moment. Family constellation can be in groups, in workshops, as you have experienced yourself, then you can have representatives to represent yourself. The issue is not only about families. You can pretty much work in a constellation with absolutely everything. If you think about your job, you want to change your job, or if you want to think about your finances, or if you think about relationship, but also the dynamics in the family, because the family system is the first one that we are part of. Yes. And also in family constellation, we work a lot with orders. Yes. We have orders. We have the ancestors that came up first, and then we have us. And if you have children, then they are the priority. And when everybody has a place, nobody needs to be entangled. The entanglements, and when we're talking about hidden dynamics, it might be someone that might be entangled with someone from the past. If someone was excluded, or if someone wasn't really brought into the system, didn't have a place in the system, then someone that is born might be representing that soul. Yes, and that's what we call an identification. When you do a family constellation, it's so powerful for the client, for the issue holder, for who is bringing the issue, but also for all the representatives. And, some of you might have, that are watching it today, might have the experience. It's a very powerful process. And it's so precise that when you choose a representative for your family system, for whatever issue you're bringing, normally the vibration of the person that is picked, it is very random, is very much with the vibration of the situation. It's very, 100% most of the time you get people saying, I was I was in that constellation and I felt as if it was my constellation. Yes, because it just enlightens and brings into light. If you want to see, you want to find a resolution for something, you set up a constellation to check. With illnesses nowadays, people use it for everything. Illnesses you can check. You can put there, the person, the client, you can choose, for example, an illness, the reason for that and how this can be solved. In Brazil, that's where I come from, people use family constellation for the legal system, for resolution in the legal system. And they also explore it in different ways. I think more and more it's normal here as well. You can work with family constellation in workshops, one-to-one sessions. You can use dolls. As you touch the dolls, you can feel, once you set the family constellation, the system will show what is in there. There is a certain feeling that arises as a facilitator. You're just there to hold the space, but it's the system, is the family, is the constellation, the system that it will shows what the feelings that arise in the resolution that is needed. It's not a healing. Yes, sometimes people say it's a healing family constellation. Family constellation will create the movement in that system that will lead into healing.
So could you give us an example of an outcome that somebody, or maybe with a client of yours, or some sort of example where you've seen a shift in somebody's life or in somebody's family?
Yes, I will give you an example. For example, I had a client of mine, and her husband used to drink a lot. Yes, he enjoyed drinking, and he was increasing the amount of drinking. Once we decided to look, where does this come from? Because you can think, well, as a healer, then when you look as a healer, you may think, might be something to do with the inner child, might be some as a trauma that is in there. With the family constellation, we look, okay, let's see where this comes from. Then when we set up the constellation, we saw that the father had been excluded from the family because he used to drink. So as a loyalty for the father, the son, that was her husband, started drinking. So what was his way of honoring his dad in doing what his dad used to do? So once we're able to see that, we're able to give it back to the father and say, you have a place too. And I don't need to represent you. I do not need to drink in order to be loyal to you. I'm your son. And after that, he stopped drinking.
Wow, that's really quite profound, because
yes,
it would be hard to get to that using your logical mind or your conscious mind. You'd be like, it sort of like comes in around the outside. Fascinating.
The system is very clear. The system, once you put it there and you add, Bert Hellinger, when he created, he used representatives for each person. Towards the end, he was bringing more into just allowing people to step in without naming them. And the representative, it's, herself or himself, would be able to describe what exactly they were. Yes, you bring resources, in a way of, okay, this is what is the situation is, this is what the field is showing, what is needed. So what is the movement that needs to happen for this to have a resolution? And you find the balance as well in giving and receiving, and the orders of love that is very important. And in this case, the son was holding something for the father, so the father would have a place, as if saying, my father has been excluded, but I'm doing what I can to bring his energy back, to hold that the same energy. And once it was returned, was given back, and the dad was given a place, the father was given a place, then the son was free to live his life, because that's what every ancestor wants. Once, you're given your life, and this is your life to live. But every time we are entangled somewhere there, we are unable then to look forward.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It really is. Dennis, I bet you've also had some profound experiences or some experiences that your clients have had. Any profound shifts that come to mind?
Yeah, I think I'll talk about energy healing, because there was definitely a case there. So I was working with a lady who she'd been walking her dog and she'd fallen badly and really hurt her ribs. So she had sore ribs, she had really sore hips, and she had very bad insomnia. So there was also family dynamics that were really unsettling her, and she had really bad insomnia. So after five sessions, all of those symptoms had vanished. But then, so that was that. But then what happened was, around about the same time, I was doing running myself and exercising, and I lost my sort of train of thought while I was running, and I landed flat out on the tarmac. I sort of stepped off the curve, landed flat on the tarmac, and I really hurt my ribs badly. This is around about the same time as I'm working on the client. So if I hurt my ribs, I can't sleep and I can't exercise. And this went on for like 2 weeks or something. While I was doing that, I was starting to research, what's the story around this? What's the metaphor? What's happening? So I sort of got out my Deb Shapiro that I learned about on the course, that your body speaks your mind. And I found out that the ribs are the guardians or the sentinels of your emotions. That's what they can possibly mean. And then if you hurt your ribs, it can mean betrayal. So I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. Let me look into this. Then I take the story further, and I realized exactly a year before, I've been running in that spot. Well, actually, I've been walking in that spot, and I've been talking to a friend of mine about betrayal, but particularly betrayal that had happened to me. So I was like, okay, well, that's pretty amazing. But then during our course, one of my student colleagues did a 12-minute healing on me, and 3 or 4 days later, all the symptoms were gone. So the parallels and everything was just quite fascinating, but also the fact that the energy healing in both cases just took the symptoms totally away. So I just love that, when you delve into the story, it's kind of like a detective work. You follow the threads, you delve into the story, you see what comes up from your client, and quite amazing things can happen.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. It's quite incredible the shifts that can take place. I mean, Cindy will know. Cindy's seen many students transformed over that course. But when I started healing, my life was at rock bottom. I just about lost every penny to my name. Almost kicked out of my house. Had to sell my car. I was like penniless and just about homeless. And as I started healing myself, and I guess self-healing is like such a powerful tool, things started to turn around slowly, and eventually turned around significantly. But I remember maybe it was like day 2 of the healing course or something. We did a meditation on the sacral chakra, and I did healing to my sacral chakra. And the sacral chakra is all about relationships and self-care and so on. And I was like, okay, well, that was pretty profound. Okay, but it's been a long day. I've got another long day tomorrow. I'm just going to go home and have an early night. And I ended up having about a 5-hour conversation with my wife about our relationship. And it was just like, oh my goodness, that was quick. And we just like dealt with all this admin and stuff that we had to deal with in our relationship. And I was just like, that's no coincidence that I've just done a big meditation on my sacral chakra. But Cindy, you must have seen like a lot of transformations of students.
So as you've all been talking, and I was reflecting and listening to the family constellation, and I've never done one. I'm quite curious, and I think I'm going to. But I was thinking about the title of our talk tonight, about the path of the healer. And for me, the path of the healer is so often when people start or people are in search of being healers is that they need healing themselves. And I know certainly for myself that the time I started the healing course, although I didn't acknowledge I wanted to be a healer, is that I acknowledged that there was work I needed to do. And what I've observed over the years is even if people don't think it, and people have come a long way on their healing journey, the path of the healer is to continue healing. The path of the healer is that the wounds will continue to show themselves. And as we heal the next one, we increase our knowledge by learning the next one. And the lessons will come in waves of learning. So for me, it will continue. And I was talking to somebody today and they said, I don't want to do the healing course because I think all my stuff's, I've done so much work and I don't want my stuff to reappear. And I said, well, that's just the reason why one needs to do that, because you very rarely find a healer that hasn't had childhood trauma, that has had this really fabulous life and a Brady Bunch family and, you know, no wounds. Generally speaking, the healer comes from a place of woundedness, and then they want to support others because they've come through difficulty. And that, for me, is the journey of, thank you, Michelle, of the Wounded Healer. And as we do our healing, we then look to become the compassionate observer and hopefully the wise compassionate observer, and sometimes not the so wise, but for me that is the path of the healer. The healer has walked in those shoes. Dennis talked about coming back and not knowing. We don't know. You've talked about being penniless, and we all came from this place, and a lot of people know my story, but mine came through abuse of alcohol, of my sexuality. There are a number of traumas that I went through in my life. And as I saw energy healing heal those, in turn, I wanted to support others.
Yeah, I was in such desperate need of healing, but I couldn't afford to pay anybody, so I just started working on myself. And then miraculously, people just started coming in, and that's when I first realized, you know, actually, maybe I can actually do this. Maybe I can be a healer. And you know, at the time, I already had more than 5 books on healing on my bookshelf that I'd read over the last like 10 years or something. I was like, well, actually, maybe I am interested in this stuff, you know, because I always have been like fascinated about it. I just didn't think that it was for me. And that was one of the wounds that needed to be healed. You know, can I accept this? Can I do something different? You know, that was one of the challenges I needed to overcome, was just my perception of what it meant to step outside of this normal path that I thought I was following, school and university and job, and you know, and I needed to heal that to be able to accept this new sort of path that I was following. What are some of the biggest challenges you guys have faced? Fernando, any challenges that you've come across?
Oh, I had a lot of traumas in childhood. You know, we're learning in family constellation, you need to have depth in to be able to hold others. Yes. So I have learned through healing myself with different other professionals, with the help of other therapies and therapists, to get to the point where I felt, okay, I can now do that. I can hold that same space, that loving space for others, and be able to see and accompany them during their journey for a little bit.
Yeah.
Which I feel tremendously honored to every single client that I have, because I have been there.
For sure.
Yeah, thanks, Fernanda. So just a note to the audience, if you guys have a question, post your questions into the Q&A tab, and we'll put your questions to the panel in a second. But we've got, I see the time's already flying. we've got a few announcements to make. Now, some of us have spoken about the healing course that we've done with the School of Intuition and Healing, and it's really is quite transformative just from a life perspective. It changes the course of everybody's lives who's done this course, and the skills that you learn on the course, from holding space for others to different healing techniques and tools. Now, the school has launched an online version of this healing course that is certified.
Yeah.
And I remember, one of the things that attracted me to this course in the first place was that it was internationally certified. So I suppose that's one of the blessings of COVID. It's opened up the online space to access more students. And the online course is now certified?
The online course is certified 100% by one body, but we also have BAHA, which is kind of the energy, is
so
really.
This is the British Alliance of Healing Associations.
That's right.
Yeah.
Where 25% of the course needs to be done live. So we will be activating that in Cape Town and in London as well. So we've got Fernanda in London who's going to be helping support that, and hopefully I'm manifesting being in London in November to support Fernanda doing the first one. And then we'll also be doing that in Cape Town. But if someone is not in South Africa or the UK, you will be able to get an accreditation for the course 100% online. So we've really learned an amazing amount, Mark, around doing facilitation online through COVID, and that we can actually do it because we can see energy and there's no time or space in the spiritual world. So it's amazing.
Well, what's amazing is, doing distance healing, it doesn't matter how far away people are, you can heal. And it's quite fortunate. I'd say 60% of my clients are done at a distance or in different countries, and the results are no different.
It's a commitment. It's a 2-year course. Please download the pack. Phil, if you'd like to talk about it, the interview does not mean you're committed. Fill in an application form, get that to us. You'll book an interview with myself, and then we can talk about it. It's about whether you are ready. So it's a dual interview. We interview the healer, and the healer interviews us, and then we see whether it's the right time for the healer, and the healer's ready to do the course with the school, and then we work together. So it's a 45-minute to an hour chat that we have. It's a commitment, but it's a life changer. There are not many people who have done the course that it hasn't changed their lives in some shape or form.
Yeah, and as Fernando was saying, just sort of the energy management, the grounding, the protection, and Dennis was talking about the gap process before you start a healing session, just to make sure you're protecting your energy, you're protecting their energy. That's all right. So we've got a couple of questions coming in. The first question, Dennis, that tree that you spoke about, can you tell us a little bit more about the tree?
Yeah, certainly. So I spoke about the roots and the trunk and the branches and the leaves. Basically, it's all the traumas or the blockages or the challenges that you can possibly work on. And in EFT, there's a concept called borrowing benefits. So we might sort of be working on, say, a part of the trunk, which is a traumatic life event. And by working on it, working on a certain process, you can collapse other processes. So although you're working on a trauma, you might suddenly find physical symptoms clearing up, or some of your beliefs changing, or what have you. And when we talk about beliefs, we like to say that beliefs are not bad, beliefs are not good, but also beliefs are not real. So any belief that you have taken on through your life process, and you can, with intention, change that so that it actually is positive and good for you. So there we would work on the root part of the tree, working on your beliefs. So basically it's working on your beliefs, your traumatic life events or your life events, your feelings and emotions, and then symptoms.
Okay, thanks, Dennis. Fernanda, maybe you have a favorite module on this 2-year course, or something that was really the most profound part of that 2-year course for you.
The healing course that I did?
Yeah, the 2-year healing course with the school, yeah.
Well, as I said, for me, was a big gift to learn how to manage my energy. Yes, to learn what is mine and to learn what is, others, the thoughts. I really, it was a big struggle for me to understand why I felt so weird in different places. For example, going through an airport and feeling really unwell with a lot of people. But, this was a tremendous gift to learn, and to learn the healing and the changes that I made. Letting go of the things that I didn't need anymore as I was healing, walking forward with with who I wanted to be. I feel very much that I am right now. I feel in the place where I can be myself, where I am truthful to myself. But it was a journey. Special one.
Okay. Yeah. I remember, so the healing course with the School of Intuition and Healing starts off pretty simply with some basic processes and getting the structures right, and there's a framework within which we work, and you sort of add tools as you go. And I remember just sort of like each module being more blown away. But the one that affected me the most was when we did the module on death and dying, and I was just like crying and crying and crying, and it's like so unlike me, because I'm not really a big crier. But
I wasn't there that day.
I think poor old Val. I don't know. I was working with somebody, and I just, there was just a big release.
Yeah.
But I think the most profound thing that I learned was the interactive healing process, which comes right at the end. And when I started working with clients in the interactive way, it was just like, wow, they're just like big breakthroughs. People just like getting such wisdom from their wounds and from their trauma, and then being able to shift that and clear that. Dennis, do you have any sort of favorite modules?
Well, it's a lot, so I'll just pick one. Because you mentioned crying, I think I'll talk about that, because there was also one that had me in floods of tears, where I could hardly speak a word to tell what was going on. But it was tears of joy. So it was there's a long visualization. I think it's called the lighthouse visualization. And you work up through all the chakras, from the base all the way up through the heart and through to the crown. And I just had the most profound experiences. I connected with my deceased mum, which just like really started the floodgates. I connected with Archangel Michael. And then when I got to the very top, where there was just light pouring out of me or through this process, and I had a feeling of that oneness, that sort of like connected oneness with all of life, all beings, and it was just amazing. So yeah, that's probably my biggest experience, I think.
Yeah, nice. I think that's module 3. Okay, so we've got a few more questions coming in here. There was just a question about there's a question about the 2-year healing course, the online one. What is the structure for that? Is it in
monthly
modules, or?
So we do it every month, one
day a month.
Yeah, and the question was, why is it just one a month, and why is it over 2 years? So you've heard a lot around the changes. There's case studies, there's self-healing, and actually you wouldn't be able to process everything that you learned within yourself. Because what happens is you learn the theory, and then you apply that to yourself, and you apply that in class with your fellow students, and then you apply that knowledge into case studies. And that is how the transformation happens. It's not just theory, it's not just practical, it's a process of theory. We then work together in the class with classmates, and the tutors observe, and then we embed that by you then practicing what you've learned on yourself and your classmates with clients, and then we go on to the next module. So that is the process, and that each module builds on the other.
Okay, great. So I think that answers that question. To Fernanda and Dennis, what do you both feel are your purposes on this life path right now? Fernanda, maybe you go first.
It's to continue doing what I'm doing. I feel that I have been doing, healing, a great deal of healing. And I feel that teaching is the next level, was the next level for me, to be able to share the experiences that I had. And I hope everybody needs healing. This is unconditional love. This is light. And to spread what I have learned and share with others so they can continue to spread that.
Thank you. And you, Dennis?
Wow, this is a big question at this time of night, but let me see if I can make it short. I quite like Eckhart Tolle's take on this. So you have a primary purpose and a secondary purpose. Your primary purpose stays the same according to this model, and that is always to be attuned to spirit and allow your soul to present into this world. And then the secondary purpose changes and grows and morphs. I guess my current one is to make joyful contributions. And my biggest contributions at the moment are, I guess, through healing and through tutoring at the school. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, nice. I like this question. I'm also going to share something. So when I work with people, I find at the beginning, if I connect upwards to the higher self is choosing life experiences for healing. So life is going to mirror past trauma to bring about healing.
Right.
Okay. And the higher self, you can streamline this process by communicating with the higher self to find out why the higher self is choosing this traumatic experience. What is the past trauma that is being mirrored in this experience?
Yeah.
After that, the higher self isn't choosing experiences anymore. The soul starts choosing experiences for growth. And the soul is choosing perhaps challenges rather than traumas that bring about soul growth.
Oh, yeah.
Thereafter, the third step is the soul starts choosing a full soul expression.
Hell no.
And to get to the place of full soul expression, I think is what we're all incarnated for. To get through the healing, to get through the growth, and then to just, like Dennis was saying, the lighthouse starts to shine. And I think the more people who can reach the stage on the planet right now, the better. And I think there are a lot of people feeling this calling. A lot of people are feeling drawn towards this stage where they can be in full expression. And that's probably unconsciously why we got onto this course, and probably like part of what draws people in. We've got to get through the trauma to get to the good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, we got. Let's do two more questions. Yeah. This one's addressed to Fernanda. I tend to absorb the other people's energy quite easily. Fernanda, is there a particular chakra I can focus on to keep myself protected?
What I suggest is that you ground. You have to be very grounded, very present in your body. And if you do the course, you will learn that in depth. You will absolutely master that. But it's about being in your body. It's about setting the intention to desensitize your chakras. Yes. And putting yourself in a protective bubble. Yes. So the more you do that, you are able to contain your own energy. You have to trust that. This is another thing that you have to learn, because sometimes people say, am I protected? Am I taking? You don't stop sensing others' energy. You still can sense it, but you are in your bubble of protection.
Okay, thanks, Fernanda. And the last question, how do you choose what sort of modality to work with? Some people might not resonate with Reiki or energy healing. There's so many modalities out there. How would you advise people to choose?
It's what you're drawn to. I think your soul knows, your heart knows. I tell my clients out there, what I do is energy healing, Reiki, family constellation, but out there are a lot of different modalities. You can experiment, you can try that. But in terms of learning, I think it's about really connecting and see what you're drawn to.
Great. Dennis, how would you answer that question?
Just hit me with the question again.
Some people might not resonate with a particular healing modality. You practice a few modalities. How would you advise people to choose which modality is best for them at this point in time?
Right. Do you mean if they come for a healing session? That's what I'm thinking. Do you mean that?
Yeah, or even before that,
personal studies.
Choose, like somebody's trying to choose, okay, I need some healing. Where do I go?
Right. Yeah, that's quite a big question. I guess it has to fit in with your sort of your ethic, your life ethic. So, if you love meditating, then you might consider, say, mindfulness. If you sort of have a bit of knowledge about chakras and you're fascinated by energy systems, you might go for energy healing. I guess this is off the top of my head, but with Fernanda's family constellations, it's pretty clear what you want to work with and why you would go to a family constellation healer. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but it's kind of what you resonate with, to go back to what Fernanda said. Yeah.
I have something to say around that. For me, often you get drawn to doing what helped you. So often, Mark, your spirit release work, you had a lot of that going on, and you learned through your own work and Sue's book and stuff, you learned how to deal with that. And therefore you learned, do you know what I'm saying? And therefore you became that, and you chose that as one of your specialities, was spirit release. So often we use and we work through the things that resonated us with ourselves, or the healing we've had. It's very seldom that somebody becomes a psychologist without having had therapy. You're drawn to things that have helped you. A lot of the time, not all of the time. It's not like that fits all. But think about the healings you've had, or things that have helped you and that have made a significant thing. Because I can tell you now, people learn mostly by your story.
Yeah. And I think, that's the other side of the question, is if you wanted to deepen your studies in something, or your life is sort of shaping your path. Yeah. Okay. I think we need to wrap things up. We're already gone over time. There was so much to talk about. I want to thank our panelists. Fernanda, thank you so much for joining us from London. Dennis, thank you for joining us from the other side of False Bay. And Cindy, thank you for sharing your wisdom and your insights. It has been great to be in the Moyo studio once again. And to our audience, thanks for listening in. I look forward to seeing you guys next month when we talk to some animals. And I don't mean the crazy party animals, I mean some dogs and cats, and we're going to have some experts doing that for us. So see you next month. Thank you.
Thank you all.